but my whole life I had to present in a language I didn't know, team. And then on top of that, you would think that a communication expert studied comms. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, and I started coaching C-level when I was 21, 22 years old. Yeah, I think if I could do it, anyone could do it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Was It Chance? This is the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals, and Heather and I started off as two perfect strangers who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success. Heather, you threw in an extra word, and it made my eyebrows go up.
I was like, let's get creative with this podcast intro.
This is the podcast. Wait, what is it? I don't even remember what it normally is.
I just started embracing opportunity.
The podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative
Well, who is that just speakity spoke?
Ooh, that is our very special guest who really wasn't sure what he was getting himself into when he said yes to this interview. And
nobody is.
It's been an interesting 6 minutes as we prepped for the interview. I'm super excited to welcome. I'm going to try really hard. Oh my God, what is my problem?
Drum roll, please.
I've been practicing it all morning. Brendon Kumarasamy.
You got it.
I was like, Brendon. Yeah,
if I had those like special effects things, I'd click the box that goes, woo!
No, you did that.
No, it's Brendon Kumarasamy, y'all. And Brendon is a master manifestor who created his business MasterTalk by showing up and showing up and showing up. Through his work with MasterTalk, he coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 100 communicators.
The top 1% bottom communicators.
Top 100%. What's 100 people? I don't know, man. It is early and we are on a roll today.
Maths are hard. Maths are so
Maybe
hard.
I should start over. Or are you just going to make fun of me the
No,
whole time?
I love this, actually. We can keep rolling like this.
You guys want to just make fun of me the whole time? I'm going to be so insecure about the whole thing. Whatever.
No. 1%.
Yes.
Just the tip.
Oh my God. Through his work with MasterTalk, Brendon coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. He also has a popular YouTube channel called, surprisingly, MasterTalk, and he's crushing it over on Threads, which is actually where I met him and invited him to have this already lit conversation with me and Alan. Brendon says that his goal is to provide free access to communication tools for everyone in the world. And we're here to find out why this matters to Brendon and what intentional risk he's taken to land in this successful spot. Brendon, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Heather. You definitely get the award for being the only person in my life to have discovered me on Threads. I think you're the only person.
I'll take all awards. Thank you very much.
I love Threads. I love it where it is right now. It's like what Clubhouse was when it first started, when Clubhouse was cool.
Yeah, that didn't last long. Right. I wonder if Threads will
No.
last longer.
I was on the hype train for the 90 days that it lasted. It was so much fun.
Clubhouse, yeah, because you couldn't go anywhere. But no, Threads, the reason I like Threads, and I'm just going to tangent for a second, is because right now, and I hope this isn't on their product roadmap, but you can't search by hashtags. You can't filter by hashtags or anything right now, right? And so that avoids all the bots, that avoids the random people that are trying to reach out and sell you crap. It's so nice because it's just local. It feels local and very very small while being able to reach anybody, such as Brendon Kumarasamy.
Oh, so, you did that so much smoother than I did the first time. It's impressive.
I'm just saying it in my head for the last 1%.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way.
Now you all know why I called it MasterTalk and now Brendon Kumarasamy. No one would find me on YouTube or any episode.
I was like down your YouTube rabbit hole. I was like, I got to hear this guy say his name over and over.
Down his what?
The trick, by the way, Heather, is to go to LinkedIn and click the pronunciation.
Oh,
that's the trick.
I am not a good LinkedIn user.
No, me neither. Like, that seems too stuffy for me, but I think I need to get on there. I mean, I am on there, but I need to, like, update
it.
And
You're
then have a
fan,
pronunciation.
Aren't you, Brendon, of LinkedIn?
Oh, yeah. LinkedIn, it gets us everything. LinkedIn's the only reason I can do this full time, honestly.
Wait, okay. For somebody who doesn't use LinkedIn for promotion, tell me about that, because I'm seriously like gonna learn right now.
Oh yeah, 100%. I actually wrote a threads on this that will come out next week. I think you two are the only two people who probably care about that, because each of my posts get like 2 likes. That's probably
Mine
you
don't
and then
get. Can we
Alex.
like each other's posts? Can we just like? Can we just agree to do that right now?
Guaranteed built-in
move
like.
it. Just move it. And one of the things that I'm writing that's coming out like next week or something is like, if I was only on one social media platform, if I could only be on one, which one would I choose and why?
Ooh.
And for me, it would be LinkedIn, actually, for 3 main reasons. So the first one is only 1% of all of the active users on the platform create content. So there's not really a lot of competition. That's the first piece. The second one is a lot of my ideal clients are there. You know, corporate, a lot of the people who actually have money. The median income, I think, for people on LinkedIn is like $72,000, which is wild. So that's the second reason. And the third one I forgot, but it's a nice platform. And it's useful, yeah. Oh yeah, the third one is you already have an existing following because you got friends who follow you on it.
Right.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't start from zero, yeah.
That's interesting though that you called it a social media platform, because I don't think of LinkedIn as a
is, though.
social media platform. But yeah, you're right. It absolutely is. It's a, I guess, more of a. Well, I guess Facebook is for my parents, right? And
Yes.
whatever. But yeah, LinkedIn is a certain set of people that are is more. I guess they have a career because that's what you're there to list, right? Professional contacts, and that usually careers usually come with incomes. So yeah.
One can hope. Well, so
One can hope.
That's for anybody who is not familiar with Brendon and Brendan's work, and you can't see him. You are quite young, and you talk about that a lot. Like, I really want to dig in on what kind of intentional risk, what kind of opportunities showed up for you to lead you down this path to be as successful as you are at such a young age. I mean, you're not like a teenager, but you're.
For those who are wondering, I'm like 12 years old now, so I'm starting high school.
He
next
just
year.
got
I'm
his
really
first
excited.
chin hair, so it's the one long chin hair that all prepubescents,
Yeah, I'm going after this podcast. I'm going to go with my mom to buy some school supplies. So I'm really excited. It's
At
gonna-
Hot
Not that
Topic.
young. I didn't mean it as an insult, but you talk about it a lot. It's a very common theme for you to bring up.
I know. I'm just playing to the to the theme of this show.
I
but-
just try to ignore Alan and move on. Is my approach. Like, let's just
so does
pretend
everybody
he's
in
not
the
talking
world.
and just-
Everybody in the world.
I love it.
You are a handsome dude, by the way. I was
Thank
gonna
you,
say.
I
Like,
appreciate
I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of you because you could take it, not because you actually
yeah,
look
yeah,
like that. Yeah. So I guess
I ask him a question. You gonna let him answer
Oh yeah.
it?
What, okay. There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
I'll jump into
Okay.
it. So the point to your question, Heather, was, MasterTalk by and large was an accident. I never really wanted to be a business owner. I consider myself an anti-creative in the past anyways. I never really saw myself as a creative person because my bachelor's degree that I studied in college was accounting. Like, I was a 19-year-old kid studying accounting. I had a big suit on, and I couldn't really afford a nicer suit because my parents were factory workers. So my only focus when I was 19 was, how do I get a great job? How do I get a job at one of these big accounting firms? So I stumbled into communication by accident when I was at an event and I was asking the people that I considered to be gods, so people who had jobs at one of these big four accounting firms like KPMG or Deloitte. And I just asked them, how did you get a job in this company? And they said, oh, do case competitions. And I looked at
What is
the
that?
students. Exactly. I had the same reaction. I was like, what's a case competition? And basically, Al, in a nutshell, it's like a nerd competition where you're going out to conferences, you're presenting business cases, and executives of companies look at you and they go, oh, I like this kid. Oh, that kid's presenting better than my vice president of the company. Let's give this kid a job. And that's what these competitions are. And that's how I stumbled into MasterTalk.
So that's
Wait, but what kind of
legitimately
case?
the chance that you encountered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
That's
kind of case? Like a legal case? Because I'm like binging Suits right now, so I'm all
love
legalese
Suits.
right now. Yeah.
This is such a great show. So yes. So it's yes and no. So in law, that's referred to as a moot court, right? Where it's like you go to law school, then you got a bunch of people debating like a legalese or like a topic. Whereas in business, it's more of, let's say Nike comes to all three of us and says, Heather, Alan, Brendan, I want to open a new Nike store, but I don't know if I should. But I only have enough money to open one store. So should I open it in Berlin in Germany, or should I open it in, I don't know, in New York City, and why?
Let's say Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal, sure. Montreal or Berlin, let's do that. And then we have to spend 3 hours reading like a 20-page document with all of their financials, the data of the company, and we have to make slide decks, like slides, and then at the end of that 3 hours, we have to go back and present it to often are the actual executives of the company, and the person with the best solution wins. But we're all kids. We're all like 20, 21, 22 years old, and the reason they do these competitions is because it's a recruitment tool for Nike.
Free labor.
And sort of. I mean, our ideas aren't that great. I mean, we're 20. But yeah, some ideas get implemented, but not really.
Oh, that's cool. So it's a I guess it's a career fair debate club competition for executive. Yeah, okay, I get it. So you started doing that. Was this opportunity that you sort of dove into? Do you remember your first case?
Oh, 100%, Alan. So basically what happened is, think of me like the Michael Jordan that nobody gives a shit about, in the sense of I started doing these case competitions. For some reason, I got really obsessed with them. I got really angry towards teammates. This was like my life, but nobody cares about a case competition. So I never got punished for it. Like, I never got into trouble. So going back to this, my first case, which might bore you guys, so cut me off at any point, was for a packaging company. So do you guys know what? Do they sell Oasis in the U.S., like those juice bottles? Do you guys know what that is, or is that a Canadian
I
thing?
think it's Canadian. Yeah.
Okay, think of it like Tropicana. Okay, let's use Tropicana as an analogy. So we all know Tropicana, the company, but we don't know the person who packages the cart, like who actually makes the cart.
Right.
Right. So like in Canada,
they show up, the packaging shows up empty, and then the juicer has to put the juice in it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of how the business works, I think. Anyways.
Okay.
So you got this cart. And so the case was given by the packaging company for like a Tropicana or an Oasis in this case. And basically the challenge, which is a very bizarre case to get when you're 19, it was a very difficult one, where we had to market shelf-stable cream to the Canadian U.S. market. So what is shelf-stable cream? When you go to not a Tim Hortons, when you go to Dunkin'
We know
Donuts
Tim
right
Hortons.
in the U.S.
Everybody knows Tim Hortons.
Okay.
If you watch
That's
movies,
good.
you know Tim Hortons.
If you watch some Canadian favorites or something. So when you go
I just went to one in Niagara Falls.
Oh, that's awesome. There you go.
There you go.
I love Tim's. But anyways, as I should. So when you go to these Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, and you put cream in your coffee, often that cream is refrigerated. Whereas in Europe, that doesn't exist by and large. Like, they don't really refrigerate cream. They just put it on a shelf and they pour it. So we had to sell that to the Canadian market, which is a very difficult task. So that was the case.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so
What was your solution? You like airdrop it from helicopters? Because that's what I would do.
I've been on so many podcasts, Alan. There's not a single person who has asked what my solution was. I love that. I can't believe you want to nerd it out over this, which is great.
Dude, I love solutions.
So here's the solution we came up with. It was kind of stupid in hindsight, but we got third place because we did a commercial for the company, which is a whole other ballgame. It was really stupid. I basically, because shelf-stable cream is 10% to 20% less expensive. You had no idea this conversation would go this way. I know it's weird. 10 to 20% cheaper than regular cream. So we made a commercial about how I was really poor, and my dad in the commercial, who's my friend, is like Chinese. So it's like the stupidest thing. And the CEO loved it. He was like, "Oh my God, like these kids like went to a grocery store and filmed it." So anyways, the solution that we came up with was the site that my friend came up with, rather. I won't take credit for it. It's the scientific effect called priming. So if something feels cold, then you'll think it's cold. So what he had the idea of is putting hockey packaging on the cart. But the reason we didn't win the competition, despite our passion, is the CEO said, the mistake you guys made with that is most of the times the people who make that buying decision are not men, they're women. Right? That, like, who's going to the grocery store more often? It's the mom. It's not the dad. So they won't get attracted by the hockey packaging. We said, shit, like, they're right. So we lost the case.
Oh.
That's really good feedback, though. You have to take your demographics into account.
Okay, but the priming is interesting. And I think, because I've been watching your stuff and reading your threads and checking out your videos, that's a concept that you bring into the work that you do. You want to, yeah. Will you share that?
100%, Heather. So for me, when I think about priming, I think about it more from an emotional perspective. So a lot of us, when we think of communication in general, the first reaction we get to public speaking is yuck. Kind of like spinach you don't want to eat for lunch, or like doing the dishes after you're done eating. It's like you don't want to do that. So we associate that energy to public speaking, communication mastery. So for me, the question has always been, how do we make communication feel almost like eating a tub of ice cream, right? If you can do that, you can really create magic. So the question I always ask people to think about, and that's why I thought I had legs in this industry, even if I was a kid when I started making videos, frankly, was how would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? Like a lot of people, I'm surprised no one's ever asked that question. I was like, why am I the person to come up with this? And that's kind of what spiraled the MasterTalk into what it is.
I think outside the box, just like the kid in Suits. I get it.
There you go.
So what's the answer?
Okay. Yeah. So the answer, Heather, is it depends, right? So how would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? So for all of us, Heather, that answer is different. So for me, it might be this famous YouTuber, or grow on social media, sell a bunch of books, build a big business. For somebody else, it might be being a better parent, a better father, a better mother for their children. Because if they're a 10 out of 10 parent, from a comms perspective, they would have less arguments. They would raise them in a proper way so they know how to deal with conflict resolution. So that's another one. Another one's a friend. Like if you're a lot better at communication, you're going to show up as a better friend. But the key is to pick the best motivation that suits your personality. Because a lot of people won't resonate listening to this podcast with, I want to grow my business, I want to grow this, I want to grow this all the way to the end. But it could also be like, hey, like if you can speak better, it'll make your life better when you travel and you meet strangers.
So when you're saying speak better, is it literally grammatically better, or projecting, or summarizing your ideas in a coherent way, which I need the most help with because I'm all over the place.
Clearly.
I can make the words do the things, but what the words mean is still what I need practice on. So yeah, what I guess, is it different for everybody, or how do you focus in with people on what a good communicator means to them?
I mean, excellent question, Alan. And that's really the what you're hinting at with that question, is how vague communication is as a field, which is something else I realized when I started in this game, is communication can mean 100 different things, versus like in fitness, okay, sure, whether you want to be a bodybuilder, whether you just want to get fit, like there's still 3 easy steps to get started. Walk every day. Eat the right things, maybe go to a gym. Like we all know what that is. But in communication, beats me, like nobody really knows what those first 3 things are. That's why I always like to say that communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? One of them's storytelling, one of them's body language, one of them's facial expressions. And our goal, Alan, is to really think about what are the 3 easiest balls to juggle. So I'll give you one as an example really quick. Oh, you want to jump in?
No, I just don't want him to make a bad joke.
Hey, listen, you interrupted him to talk about balls.
See? I was mostly, it was me trying to subliminally talk to Alan.
I was going to let that one go. I was just going to let those balls roll right away, and you had to stop and draw attention to how big his ball comment is.
I just knew what was coming.
And now it's this long thing that's just getting drawn out. Okay,
Please continue,
no more
Brendon.
long and bouncy balls. Go for it.
For sure.
Hang on a second. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Okay, we're back.
So the first ball is the random word exercise. So you take a word like pistachio, like walnut, like phone, like tissue box, something completely random, it doesn't matter, and you create a 60-second presentation out of thin air. And it serves 2 main purposes. Number 1 is if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything. So if you can talk about avocado toast for 5 minutes, or well, not 5 minutes, but 60 seconds in this example, you can talk about anything for 60 seconds.
I love avocado toast.
I do too. It's actually really tasty. It's actually really good. I had it for the first time in 2019 and it completely changed my life. I was like, oh my God. Because before 2019, I was too poor for avocado toast, admittedly. So I was like, who pays $9 for toast? You know what I mean?
You can make it at home, babe. You can make that shit at home.
Do I
Depends
look
on
like
where
I
you're getting
cook at
avocados
home?
from. Yeah, it's like a $9 avocado.
I'm so lazy, guys, because I just do business all day, that I just eat a whole avocado every day, which is nothing to this conversation. But yeah.
I eat avocado.
I'm jelly. I'm toast jelly.
I'm not mad.
No, I'm
Anyway,
not mad
we've
at
got
all.
balls.
I always pay up for my avocado.
They're in the air. They're
Oh
60
yeah,
seconds, avocados.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
so put the ball metaphor back in your mouth. Let's go with this.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
Yeah,
See?
right.
See?
What? What?
See?
I'm trying to keep the conversation moving.
Yeah. And both of you are doing a great job at that. So that's the first phase. Is if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything. That's the first utility. The second one is small talk, surprisingly. So what is small talk at the end of the day, Tim, right? It's you're having a conversation with somebody you met, and you're asking each other questions that you didn't prepare for. That's what small talk is. So if you can talk about a bunch of random things, you'll be a lot wittier in conversation. Kind of like how both of you are right now. You're kind of like coming up with the jokes and the energies, and you're able to flow that. That's actually very rare. Not a lot of people can do that, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the first ball of my 18-ball analogy. Yeah.
Well, tell us more about how awesome we are, though.
Right. Let's talk about what really matters. No.
I mean, I like your hair, Heather. It's nice.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
And I like how your dress matches the book in the back.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm
Yeah,
a
that's
bright,
cool.
colorful person. It's all in my
Was
branding.
that intentional? Was that chance, Heather?
That was actually chance this morning because here's how, when I find a dress that I like, and so any people who wear dresses who are listening will understand this. It has to have pockets, and for me, it for the most part needs to not require a bra because fuck the patriarchy. And I buy it in like every color or pattern possible. So I have this dress in 6 different patterns, but I do like the rainbow one the best. It's my favorite. Anyway,
but no bras.
no, fuck that noise. I
Fuck that.
managed
I don't wear bras either.
to
I'm with
spend
you.
an entire week in Paris with my daughter, and I only brought clothes that I was able to not wear a bra in. And I was like really proud of myself when I was over. I was like,
for
I
you.
don't care. Anyway, that was really unnecessary. Thank you for the compliment, Brendon. Okay, so I actually really want to talk about the chance you embraced to build this career because I love that. I love that you went to university. It makes sense to me. You were like, okay, accounting, I can count on this. Haha, pun intended. I understand it. I'll make money. There are jobs. I happen to have loads of clients who are accountants, which is really, really weird as a coach. I work with not one of the big 4 firms, but one just right under there. And so you find this chance opportunity. You get into the communication aspect of it, speaking, connecting with people. What happens that this completely then pivots your approach to whatever you're going to do the rest of your life?
Yeah, for sure, Heather. Great transition. So the pivot was let's go back to the nerd story. So I do these competitions. I accidentally fall in love with them. I initially did them to get a job, but then a few years later, kind of like the whole Michael Jordan that nobody cares about, I just fell in love with cases. I started competing like a madman. I started and how the coaching began with communication because my first 50 people I coached, I never got paid to do it. Right? It was more just something I loved doing. I didn't know it was a career. So when I was 19, 20 years old, probably a year after I competed, you kind of play more of a mentorship role. So I became one of the students running the program, and I was recruiting the next generation of talent. So we hired all these people to join the program. Excuse me, recruited, and then I'm the one who kind of brought up, hey, 20% of these kids, I call them kids because they're like
and
my
you
kids.
were a kid too.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Because they're a year younger than me, but I call them my kids, or I used to anyways. So I'd say like, hey, look, 20% of these kids are really good at smart, but they're not great speakers. So let me just figure out how to coach them because we didn't have a communication coach. So I basically just made a bunch of mistakes. I splat a bunch of things on the wall. And by the time I was 22, I landed the dream job I wanted. I got a great offer at IBM. So I thought I was just going to work there as a tech consultant. But then in my last semester of college, this is a month before I started MasterTalk, one of the 50 people, Heather, asked me a question. One of the 50 people I coached asked me a question that completely changed the perspective of my life. And the question was simply, how did you learn how to speak? And I went, Aziz, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean how I learned how to speak? They go, well, you're a great speaker and you taught us how to speak, but who taught you how to speak? Like, did you do Toastmasters? Did you hire a coach? And I laughed. I was like, a coach? I can't even afford like a lunch. How am I supposed to get a coach? Obviously today I spend a lot of money on coaches, but at the time I was broke.
Right.
And so I said, what do you mean? And he's like, hey, do you like watch YouTube videos? And I said, YouTube videos. So I had 4 months to kill before I started working at IBM. So for the fun of it, I went on YouTube, I Googled public speaking tips, and I was horrified by what I saw. I saw a bunch of 50-year-old dudes and 60-year-old guys, and they were mostly guys, honestly, just really bad at speaking. I was like, how could you be a PhD in communication and be really bad on camera? So I just started getting really mad for 3 hours, and then after a few, and then I just said, I just had the naivete to think I could do better, so I posted my first video in January 2019.
That's literally how all of my projects have started too. I totally feel you. I'm like, I'm looking for this. What the fuck? I can't find anything. What? And I
That's how
throw all my
BPM started.
tables. Yeah, that's how the podcast network started. Flip all my tables, kick holes in all my walls, and then as I'm repairing them, I think about all the ideas I have to start the businesses. And here we go. And I love that. I love that you're just like, well, I'm going to try it. And is that naivete on your part, not knowing how hard it is? We hear this all the time. People say, if I knew how hard it was, I wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But then once you're in it, you got to keep going.
That's definitely correct. Definitely. The only other piece I'll add to that, Alan, is, obviously today a lot of those older guys are my friends now, right? They're colleagues, right? So I was kind of making a little joke when I started, but I think to your point, Alan, this plays well, because at the beginning I was like, these guys suck, these people stink, and then when I started making videos, I realized how hard it was, and I was like, I'm still better, but
it's hard.
But it's hard. Like, okay, I have a lot of respect now, because when they started making videos, like nobody was creating content at all, whereas I have the benchmark to follow. So you kind of, and I got more mature over time. But then to kind of fast forward the story a little bit, and you guys can punch in on specific parts here. I got really lucky, basically. 9 months into MasterTalk, I went to Summit of Greatness, which is an event Lewis Howes hosts in Columbus, Ohio, which is basically in the middle of nowhere. And I met my business partner there, who's 20 years older than me, who's been married for 17 years, he's got 2 kids, lives in Pittsburgh, like completely different from the life that I live. And he basically just looked at me and he's like, hey, you could charge Indian executives thousands of dollars to work with you, right? And I was 23 at the time. So I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I'm a leadership coach. Here, take 10 clients. We'll split the revenue. And then he wrote me a check and I was like, holy shit. So yeah, he changed my life in a big way. And then I quit my job in June 2021. I was the only breadwinner in the family and I was scared shitless, but we made it work.
Wow.
Wow. So you were, when you say the breadwinner, you mean for your immediate, your parents and siblings and whatnot?
That's correct. So quick background on that, Heather. So my parents worked on minimum wage, right? So my dad was a manager at a hat factory. My mom worked at as a seamstress, making $12 an hour. So when I was making $35-$40 an hour, I was one of the wealthiest people in our community, even if I was making 70 grand a year, 75 grand a year. So I basically was able to retire my mom because our expenses are so low. Our mortgage is $700 a month, right? It's crazy because we live in Montreal, right? And we bought the house in the late 90s. We just never had the money to pay it off. So when I had enough money, I just said, and then I retired my mom. But then what happened, because we all live together, my mom's upstairs, my sister's
sounds like
upstairs.
you're a mafia leader. I retired.
I don't know.
Just a good traditional South Asian family, I think, right?
I don't know what the relationship is there. So when I was thinking about quitting, even if in hindsight, because obviously I do better now, but it wasn't in retrospect, it wasn't that much income to replace. But it was really scary at the time because my sister was still in college. I still didn't have money and I was paying for education too, a South Asian thing as well. Luckily in Canada, the students' fees are not as crazy as it is in the States. But, it's still a lot. It's still 10, 15 grand for a 24-year-old, 25-year-old to front. So I had a lot of stress, but, because I had the right partners and I niched down really quickly to Indian professionals, and I largely just work with them, right? There's some exceptions, but I was able to carve out a niche in our community and really grow the business to where it is today.
That's so cool. That's cool. also your business partner too had the wherewithal to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance on this opportunity with this kid. What, you said you were 22, 23 at the time?
Yeah, he met me when I was 23. Yeah,
Wow.
23. You got it. Yeah.
That's insane.
Great.
Really cool.
Yeah. Well, you're a go-getter. I do you know your human design? I know. I had to, Alan.
Here we
You're,
go.
You know what's
you're
funny?
a generator,
You know what's-
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But you know what's funny about human design? I'm glad we're doing this podcast now, because if you asked me that same question 12 months ago, I actually have this whole story about how I fell in love with human design. But basically, if you had asked me that question, I'd be like, "This is stupid. Like, why
Sure.
would I look at this?" But then when I was with my friend Dunya, we were having dinner, and then she opened my human design, and then she started reading my chart, and I was like,
How you know those
was like,
things about me?
how is that all of that right? And I started freaking out because I don't believe in this horoscope. I still don't believe in horoscopes and astrology, but the human design part, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a generator.
Yeah.
It's been
I
it's
could see
crazy.
the similarities between you and Alan. Like, oh, there's a whole gap here. I can solve that problem. You're responding to the need, and you're like, I can fix that.
Yep.
I don't understand not filling a gap, and that is being completely serious. No joke in there at all, although there are some. But I like to fill all the gaps that I see because it makes everything so much more efficient, and you can benefit from it, and your friends benefit from it. And it's this, like, if everybody did this, and this is how I think, right? And I assume, Brendon, you're the same way.
Yeah, I
is
am. Absolutely.
that if everybody did this, we'd all just be helping society and ourselves just get better and better and better.
But we can't all have the same strengths. That's not what makes
No.
the world go round. So we don't all respond in that way. But that's my favorite thing about human design, is that now I can hear you say that, and I can understand that those are the strengths that you two bring to the table, and not everybody's like that. I'm much more patient with people who don't think and behave the way I do, now that I know how uniquely we're all designed.
Correct. To your point, right? It's the different energies that makes the world whole. Like when we did that with my business partners, Vamsi and Venkat. Vamsi is the guy who took a chance on me all those years ago. Venkat was Vamsi's first client, who then became a business partner of ours later. Vamsi's a projector, and
Yes.
Venkat is a man gen, right? So it all worked, right? Because we all had our own. So he's kind of like the analogy Dunya gave me, which I loved because it made a lot more sense when she explained it. It's like I'm like this horse who's kind of running in the field, but I don't know which direction I'm going. I'm just running really, really, really fast. And Vamsi's the eagle who goes, "Hey, you should probably go in that direction." And as long as I look up and I listen to the eagle, I'll always move really, really quickly.
So that
Oh.
I love that. Your friend was spot on with all of that. You're running around, you need something to respond to, which direction to go. But you said something a little while ago that I wrote a note down about, which is today you spend a lot of money on coaching, but back then you couldn't. Why does that feel important to you now? And how does that help you manifest the next thing that you're doing? What kind of intentional risk do you take with coaching?
For sure, Heather, and thanks for pointing that out. So there's kind of two perspectives I hold on coaching. So one is it's completely changed my life, right? Like if it wasn't for and I have a unique relationship with my business partner where he's my business partner, but he's also my one-on-one coach, right? So I've been his one-on-one client for like years. So obviously I couldn't afford his rates at the beginning, but obviously I pay market now. Or probably above market at this point, but I think the
Profit
and it's been
shares.
worth it. It's been worth it. It's been worth it. Hey, it works out for all of us, and he's the best. He's the most important person, honestly, besides my mom and my sister that I've met in my life. And I tell him that, obviously, and I do all the time. But I think that's one piece. But the other piece that's very important, which is actually the main reason I started MasterTalk, is like at the end of the day, even if we all, I mean, I'm sure if you invest in coaches, Alan, but like in me and Heather's case, right? Like if we're spending thousands of dollars, to us, it's not a lot of money because we'll ROI that really fast because we're speeding up time. But for a majority of the population, like spending $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 at coaching packages is heresy. Like it was for me when I was 20. So for me, the biggest mission behind what I do is mostly the media play. Coaching is super fun for me. It's what I enjoy doing, but media is really my legacy play, which is when Dale Carnegie was alive, because of the time, for those who don't know, for the podcast, Dale Carnegie is the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, probably the greatest thought leader, the GOAT of public speaking, right? And communication. So because he was alive in the early 1900s, he could not democratize the information of communication in a way that people actually want to hear it, which is through a video on a podcast like this. Like, you didn't guest on a podcast, whereas I have that opportunity. So I want to make communication free for the world. And of course, I'll coach myself a small subset of that population, but everyone else will just get free info.
How do you decide which opportunities or which chances to follow? Which eagle, if there's multiple eagles in the air, right, then they're all pulling you in different directions. I guess two-part question. One, how do you figure out which direction you want to follow? But then the other is, when you're talking specifically about this coaching, judging ROI on soft skills is very hard.
100%, Alan. And I love both questions. Let's tackle the first one and then I can jump into the second one. So this, I'm sure, is a question you ask a lot of people on this podcast, which is like, there's so many different eagles, there's so many different opportunities. Which one do you actually pursue? So I'll give you my own perspective on this. So here's what I think. I think the first step is you make a list of every opportunity that's available to you. So in my case, it was become one of the youngest executives in IBM's history. That was one of my goals. Become one of the youngest accounting partners. That's the second one. Become an incredible communication coach, maybe the greatest of all time, the next Dale Carnegie, and democratize the world's information on communication. Then the fourth one is like maybe become a life coach. So you just list them all out. And then what you do is you follow this framework that I kind of got inspired from Rob Dyrdek. He says that you should never follow passions, you should always follow energy. So whatever's gaining energy in your life is where you should be following in your direction. So you make that list, and then you ask yourself this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how energetically excited would you be to work on this project for the next 10 years? Let me repeat that again. On a scale of 1 to 10, how energetically excited would you be to work on this project for the next 10 years? That's the first part of the framework. And then the second number that you want to write on that piece of paper is use comparison as a tool. You know, a lot of people in podcasting or just in general, they say comparison is the thief of joy. I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think there's some truth in there, but the other piece that I'll add to the knowledge base is, hey, comparison is also a gift. It's a tool that allows you to figure out what you should be doing and what you shouldn't. J. Cole's a great example. And by the way, so I'm ranting too long, just cut me off. So J. Cole is a great example of this, obviously the famous rapper. He always wanted to be a basketball player. And he said in an interview that when he was 15 years old, whenever he would play against other basketball kids his own age, it was obvious that he just wasn't that talented at it. Whereas whenever he would go to a cipher, he would always be the first or the second guy at the plate. So it was obvious to him based on that comparison, because he used the tool in the right way. He didn't compare like big fancy galas and mansions. He compared kind of skill set. He went in the right direction. And I did the same thing, is I realized I was an infinitely more talented communication coach than being a life or a career coach. So that's how I went in that direction.
That's cool. I want to call out three things that I wonder if you're doing this in your personal communications, just with friends too, but you use everyone's name a lot. And I actually just read yesterday that you should use people's names more in conversation because it shows you care and it shows you're listening. So, yes, Brendon, I appreciate that you're doing that.
We've all noticed it. Yes.
Yeah. And
I do it subconsciously now. I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah. And sometimes, let's see, every now and then you like summarize, you're like, yeah, I agree with what you just said. And then you like, well, summarize real briefly. So like we make sure we're on the same page. And I forget what the third thing was, but it'll come to me. Anyway, yeah, there's like these little things. So I guess I'm just wondering, like,
it's a MasterTalk and MasterTalk. Masterclass
it
and
is.
MasterTalk.
And does this, I guess you sort of answered my question, was, are you doing it consciously, or is it just like you've been coached now so much that is, you repeat the important things. That's the third thing. You repeat the third thing. That's the important thing. Wait, I messed it up.
Alan's not a master talker. He's a master talker, but he's not a master talker.
No. Nah, I get there. But are you doing this consciously? And are you able to like get yourself upgraded to first class at the airport and like all these little things that
no, you can just pay for it now, and it's all avocado toast for everybody.
You're so funny, Heather. I actually never rode first class. I should probably do that once for mindset.
Stop, really?
Because I'm so stingy about like there's things I'm not stingy at. Like I invest a ton of money in media production, but when it comes to like first class, I go, we're going the same direction. Like why am I spending?
Oh, get your first class on. It's going to be like your first avocado toast. It's going to change your life.
An overnight lay
that
flat
avocado
flight.
Toast did change my life.
Yeah, imagine avocado toast on a flight where you can lay down flat
to Europe.
That's the perfect world. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back.
So the outside the first class tickets, the point on your question, Alan, is so I do that subconsciously now. So going back to that 18 ball analogy, right, you two, around public speaking is body language. It's learning how to smile. It's eye contact. So what's happened with me over the years, and I'm still working on it, is now I'm at ball 16. I don't even think I'm at 18 balls myself. There's still a lot more that I want to learn.
I'm still on ball 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you keep learning and you keep moving up in that game. So it's the same thing here. Like the whole smiling or saying somebody's name. Now I feel weird if I don't do it. Because I feel like I'm not acknowledging the person. I'm not even thinking to myself, hey, if I don't say that person's name, I go like, if I don't say it, it feels awkward to me now. So it's the same thing. You just keep working on those 18 balls over time, and then eventually you master them all.
This is also great dating advice too. I mean, it's just communication. It's opening up. It's allowing yourself to connect with somebody. It's showing a little vulnerability, and just like making them understand that you hear what they're saying.
Absolutely.
That's this human connection. Yeah.
It is.
Take it into corporate life. I love that.
Brendon, I'm curious. Do you love this work? Like, does it just bring you tremendous joy?
For some odd reason, it really does, Heather. Like, especially when I was in the case competition game, like where I was competing internationally and coaching all these people, even if to the outside world, people would look at you and they would think like it's a lot of work, and it was a ton of work. I just to give you an idea of how crazy I was, I skipped Christmas 3 years in a row to do case competition.
Only a generator would do that, I swear to
Yeah,
God.
it's nuts because the competition is the first week of January.
Yeah.
And I even told all the other students, I was a dictator back then. I told everyone, I was like, hey, if you're not practicing on Christmas, I don't see why you should be a part of this team. Like, I was crazy back then. I was nuts. And I'm still crazy. I'm just a lot more toned down for clients now, so I don't want to scare them. But that was my love. That was my passion. But going back to taking a chance, going back to the theme of this podcast, and going back to Dan Sullivan's quote that might not have been spoken on this pod, which I'll say right now, is your eyes could only see and your ears could only hear that which you are looking for. And what Dan Sullivan means here, he's like one of the greatest coaches on the planet, as you probably know, is that if you ask the wrong questions, those are the answers you'll come up with. So when I was in college, the analogy that Vamsi gives me, it's kind of like, Brendon, when I met you, you're kind of like Michael Jordan of speaking, but you were plumbing. You're doing plumbing. So when Vamsi came up to me, he's like, why are you doing plumbing? Like, you should be playing basketball. Like, why are you doing that? So it's the same thing here, because the question I kept asking myself is, how do I get a high-paying job? How do I take care of my family? How do I get something stable so I never get fired? So those are the questions I was asking myself, and that's what the universe started giving me.
Yeah.
But when I started making money, that actually was the trigger to MasterTalk, is I started making money. I loved the job, honestly. A lot of people say they hate their job. I actually really enjoyed IBM. I think the people were great. They became a client too, so it worked out really well for me. But the opposite is also true. I took a step back and I said, I was in meetings leading all these implementations for tech, and I was like, somebody else can be doing this. Can I do something really important in my life? And the questions that I started asking myself changed. It changed from, how do I become a partner at this firm and make $500,000 a year at IBM? And it shifted away from that to, can I do what I love full time? Is that even possible? If so, how? And those questions really changed the trajectory of my life.
I love
Well, how do you, again, you're asking yourself the right questions, and then did the doors start opening simultaneously, or was it one after another? Like, what chances are you taking simultaneously versus linearly?
Right. So let's break that down. So the first part is, so MasterTalk, regardless if I was going to do this full time, I still wanted to do it as a hobby / passion, because I felt that void after case competitions ended. So because how these things work is that when you're done, like, you don't compete anymore, because you can only compete if you're in business school. So when you leave the school, you can't do these things again. So I was kind of like the guy who was like at the top, and then at the end I was just like, oh, well, I guess nobody cares anymore about these competitions. So I wanted my whole life to be a case competition. So what I told myself initially, MasterTalk is I'm going to make more money at IBM over time. And that's how I was able to invest money in production, even when my business wasn't making any money, is I was taking 10, 20% of the income. It's just instead of moving out, I just stayed with my mom. And that $1,000 a month became my media budget. For rent, basically. And I just said, let me just make these videos. So that I was doing simultaneously, Alan, for like the first year or so of MasterTalk, first 18 months. And then when Vamsi came into my life and kind of said, hey, you can get coaching clients, then I started getting a couple. He gave me my first clients, and obviously I struggled getting clients, but I didn't care because I had a great corporate job. And then Clubhouse happened. So for the 90 to 100 days.
Yeah.
It all comes back. Full circle.
So basically Clubhouse, while I was working at IBM, I was still in corporate back then. So I'd literally work from 8 to 6 or 7 at IBM. And then from 7 to 2 a.m. in the morning, I was on Clubhouse with my friend Billy. So we grew to like 20,000. I grew from like 0 to 20. I was like the 1,500th most followed person on Clubhouse.
Wow.
And then obviously everything went to shit on Clubhouse, but I signed 2 big accounts while I was there, and they all referred a ton of business, and that's how I was able to quit my job. That's basically what happened.
I love that.
So when you're saying you signed 2 big clients, what's the first thing is like you're taking their executives and you're putting them through a virtual Zoom boot camp of like, here's all the things you're doing wrong, but let's present this in a constructive way so you don't get defensive and walk away.
Yeah, we don't need to focus too much on the service because that's probably boring for people. But basically, it's hands-on coaching. I'll remove your ums and ahs. They'll send me videos during the week, so it's not like some 3-day workshop. It's more like 3 months. I'm really integrative with the help and to get people results. And then one of them was a big CEO in Australia, and the second one was a career coach in the U.S. But she knew like 20 people to refer me to, and she just said like, "Oh, Brenden did really good work." So I just signed a bunch of clients like. Pretty much, and even today, 70% of the business is word of mouth. Yeah, I'll post on social media kind of for legacy, but everything's word of mouth at this point, a large percentage. And then with that income, I was kind of shaking because I was like, because I was in line for a promotion now at IBM, and I was leading 3 implementations, and I had to make a choice because I was like dying. I was working 100 hours a week, basically 70 at IBM and
crazy.
30. It was nuts, yeah. Luckily, my mom was cooking food for me and taking care of everything else, or else I would have just died, literally. And so I jumped ship, and we made it work, yeah.
That's so much fun. And I love, we were talking about Clubhouse at the very beginning. And,
we did. Nice.
Yeah, it
nice
all just came back. It's interesting in that now I'm choosing my words carefully because you're saying you're removing the ums and the ahs and the you knows and the so's, and everybody has nervous tics. So that's mine, right? So at what point are you helping the person? Is it just practice? Getting them out of their own head. There's some people that just can't get it. Like, no matter how hard you try, like if I wanted to be a professional basketball player, I'm not going to be a professional basketball player. I am not Michael Jordan. And I won't ever be Michael Jordan. But at what point...
Yeah, but you're the Michael Jordan of podcasting.
Wow.
I think you are.
I'm sure.
You got a really good co-host, Heather. Be great. Alan, be grateful for Heather.
Yes.
Yeah, we're each other's wing people.
Yeah,
we get there. I guess getting out of your own head, right? I guess there's different flavors of this because it's acting coaching, but it's also professional coaching in terms of presentation coaching. And there's different flavors of all of this. But at what point is there a point where you're like, this isn't for you? Or are you trying to really help people? That's another 2-part question. A, how do you get them out of their heads? But B, if they can't get out of their heads, how do you help them cut it loose?
For sure, Alan. So there's kind of like 2 versions. I'll give you the toned down version, then you have like intense coach Brenden version. So we'll skip that for today, which is basically this, right? Okay, at the end of the day, not everyone can be an NBA player. I'm with you, but if you're practicing basketball 6 hours a day for a year, you're probably going to be one of the best basketball players in the city. Doesn't matter who you are. Just because you're shooting is just going to be so much better than everyone else. We can agree on that. If you're willing to practice 6 hours a day, right? So that's the first piece. Do I think everyone can be on a stage and get paid 50 grand to speak? No, I don't believe that, right? I think at some point you need to really love it. Because if I don't love podcasting, it's really hard to keep guesting on shows. Right? It just doesn't, you have to really enjoy it at some point. Maybe not for the first 100. When you get to 500, When you get to 550, when you get to 600, Clubhouse, when you're like speaking 8 hours a day, you got to really like it. But there's another part to the equation which is really important too, Alan, is I have yet to meet somebody who was committed and did not see exponential results in their speaking, as long as the accountability is there. So I'll give you an example with the people I work with, right? So I'll always tell them the number of videos, and I'm serious, and they don't believe me at the beginning, the number of videos you can send, because I'm really intense, as you probably got a little whiff of, is unlimited. So if you send me a video every day of the same speech, I will review it 30 times. And they said, there's no way you're going to do that. And I said, why don't you try me? And most people never take me up. You know, this is maybe 5-10% of my clients will actually take me up on that. And they'll watch every day. I'll gun. And I'll always review the video. And those people go, oh, okay, well, if Brendon's commitment, I got to be committed. So in 30 days, they'll be legends at speaking. And the third piece on that, which is the last one, is the reason I'm so passionate about the idea that anyone can be a great speaker is because I was horrible. We didn't tackle this too much on the show, but I'll recap it. I have a crooked left arm. It's literally crooked. Like, it's a physical disability because of an accident I had at birth. I was born and raised in Montreal. For those who don't know listening, Montreal's a city you got to know how to speak French. I did not know that language.
Oui.
So I went to French school to learn it. I'm fluent today in French, but my whole life I had to present in a language I didn't know to him. And then on top of that, you would think that a communication expert studied comms. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. And I started coaching C-level when I was 21, 22 years old. Yeah, I think if I could do it, anyone could do it. That's the case I'm making.
I mean, that really is mic drop. It's really fucking cool, Brendon. There's so much about it that I just want to like take apart and talk about, and we could talk for way longer. But this idea that you have to have the passion for it. So obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I assume you're familiar with Angela Duckworth's work. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Her book Grit, her TED Talk, all of that stuff. And what she has scientifically proven is that it's not skill, it's resilience. Skill is helpful, but you can have skill and not be resilient and not be successful. If you don't have resilience, you cannot be successful. It's the number one key indicator, right? And that's what you just said. You have to have passion in order to be resilient. If you don't have passion, you're not going to show up every day repeatedly. Because what you said was you redo your speech every day for 30 days. It's not sending you the same speech. It might be the same speech, but you're representing it and recording yourself. And then we're going step by step. As also a keynote speaker, that literally makes me want to vomit just thinking about having to do it every day. But I do have passion for it. And I'm sitting here, of course, going, shit, do I need to hire Brendon? Alan and I have a chat on the side. I'm like, you're going to hire this guy, aren't you? And I'm like, do I need to hire him? Like, do I even have the dedication? I'm a projector, man. Like, every day? Oh, I don't know.
You're really presenting a really interesting idea, Heather. So here's the way I think about this, is to keep it simple for people, because I've tried my years, and I'll still try for the rest of my life to kind of simplify this point, which is there's 1,000 different ways of winning the game. And your job as a human being is to figure out which one of those 1,000 games is the right path to victory. Like, there's keynote speakers who get paid $50,000 a year, never prep. Gary Vee is the best. He actually, forget 50. He's getting paid 150 now at this point in his career. He doesn't prep at all. Like, he'll just show up and people will love him because he sells a lot of tickets and people just want to meet Gary Vee. That's one way of winning. Be really successful on social media, and it doesn't matter what you do on the stage, right? Like, nobody cares about Tom Brady's ums and ahs because you're Tom Brady. Like, if you won all these Super Bowls, you could just sit there and smile and people will still pay you 100,000. And then you have another game, which is, hey, like, nobody knows you, you're kind of a nobody, you don't really have a name, so you have to create a speaking business around that. And then some people have done that. Other people, they struggle, like me as a good example. I'm a great speaker, struggle getting speaking engagements. But coaching worked really well for me because I went into a niche with just Indian professionals. I have zero competition in that space. Everyone wants to work with me. I'm the only person they refer. So I have huge price leverage.
I love that about the South Asian community.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that way. But the key is we're all lucky. We just got to figure out in which ways are we lucky and then leverage the path to victory. Like, in your case, like, the response to your point is no. Do I think Heather needs to present a speech every single day for 30 days to get better? No, of course not, because you're already getting paid to speak. You've already gotten traction. I think it's more about saying, for all of us, is there a human being, I think you've read that thread, you replied to, I remember you did, is there a human being out there that we actually want their life with like A to Z, and is there something in their life that they're doing that we're not? And it's that reflective work to then figure out what makes sense for us. But most people don't do that work, and I think that's where the gap is.
I really appreciate that there are a lot of ways. So you don't have to do the everyday video. That maybe isn't the right one for you. Is that part of what you help people do, is figure out what approach is going to be the most successful approach for them, or do they need to know that before they find you?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of nuances here. So 100% of the people I work with, that is the answer. You have to send me a video every single day for 30 days, because they don't have an American accent, right? They don't have that advantage. They say a lot of ums and ahs. English is not their first language, and a lot of their mistakes are grammar related, or they go ums and ahs, and it's a huge burden on their speaking. So they're starting at a 2 out of 10 on comms, but on their technical skills, that's where they're the talent and we're not, right? So they can code algorithms and systems and make 300K a year and just crush without speaking, but without the speaking, they can't be like VPs or SVPs in the company. So for the people I coach privately, 100% of them need to send me videos. I don't care how talented you are, that's the right path. But for somebody like you, Heather, and I'm not just saying this to fluff you up, you're also a great communicator.
Let's hear it.
Right? I'm complimenting both of you, really, which I guess is
let's just do this all day.
So for you, Heather, the advice is a little different. It's not really you necessarily need to send a video. Maybe it's once a week, but I think the real advice for you is to more think about what is the end game vision behind your brand, and how can you relate that so that you can leave a legacy that's very unique to the message that you want to share with the world, and then address those gaps, which is more the type of coaching I do on myself. Like, I'm not really doing ums and ahs coaching anymore, because I've done the reps, I've earned the strides. Now it's more about, okay, when I'm sitting and I'm listening to Alex Hormozi speak, how is he concisely, effectively sharing ideas that I can catch up to? Because I want to be him in my space. What is he doing? Oh, okay, he's really tight when he shares this reel on Instagram. Or when Tony Robbins is giving a speech, he's doing these 3 things. There's 78 other things that I don't want to do, but there's 3 things that he's doing that I'm not doing. And it's that reflective work that you need to do at your level, which won't apply to the majority of the clients I work with.
That's gold.
That's very cool. And yeah, you can pick out the stuff that works for you, and then combine, from other people, combine it all and be the best you can be.
You got it.
Army. You know those?
Yeah, let's an example of this in podcasting. Like, somebody asked me this the other day. I probably get asked this one maybe once in every 20 to 25 appearances. They go like, "Hey, Brenden, out of all of your appearances, where do I rank?" Right? So they'll say like, because I've been on so many, I've been on like 500-600, and I'll say, "Do you want the honest answer?" And they'll go, and then I'll say something like, "You're a top 10%, you're a top 5%," to the person I'm speaking, not in this podcast. And then they'll ask me like, what does the top 5 appearances have that I don't? And then I always like to say the difference, going back to that reflective work, Heather, right, is the top 5 hosts that interview me, they have a very unique perspective and vision for their guests. So when Entrepreneurs on Fire, when JLD is interviewing you, it's like, it's 15 minutes, it's really quick, you get to pick the questions, make it tangible, make it juicy. When Lewis is interviewing you from the School of Greatness, it's, yeah, give me some tips on communication, but let's hear more about your family. Let's hear more about your life. When Joe Rogan's interviewing you, it's like, let's talk about aliens. Let's go in a bunch of different places and just do like a 360 and jump around and sing Kumbaya, and let's see what we can get out of it. So and Larry King, it's more like, I don't know anything about you. I don't know who you are. And let me just so everyone's got their own unique
What about
POV,
when
and that's what you need
Alan
to build.
and Heather interview you? I want to hear your answer to that.
I think you guys remind me a lot of Andrew Schultz.
All right.
Right, which is like, you guys are very good at kind of blending the humor with with the practical insight. Schultz does this a lot. So he'll like, but he does this like on a factor. I'm not sure if this is good or bad, by the way. It's not like better or worse. Like he'll rip apart. Like I remember when it was so savage, but I love his podcast. He's like interviewing I forgot what her name is this Korean refugee from North Korea, and she escaped North Korea, and she jumps on and then she escaped the dictatorship there. So she goes on a lot of podcasts. She's been on Joe Rogan, all these stuff. And he's asking her, he's like, hey, I heard Leonardo DiCaprio was really into you. And then she goes, yeah, he's really hot. So you just get a really different perspective. And then he'll flip the conversation and go, what was the memory that you remember the most when you're in North Korea? Like and that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this show.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Leonardo just texted me and said that he's really into you. So take that for what it's worth. All right, one more quick break. Hang on a second. All right, here's the rest of the episode. All right, I want to wrap up with the final question we ask everybody on the pod, which is really just like, what is your relationship with failure?
What is my relationship with failure, Alan? For me, failure is a definition and a workout. So what do I mean by this? The relationship that successful people have with failure is very different than the relationship that unsuccessful people have with failure. What do I mean by this? Let's say we take business because it's really simple to explain. You do 10 sales calls, you're selling a product for $5,000. And out of those 10 sales calls, you get one yes. So the unsuccessful person will go, oh my God, I had to get on 9 sales calls to close one $5,000 deal. This is too hard. I'm getting rejected 90% of the time. This sucks. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Whereas the successful person is like, oh my God, $5,000? Wait a second. If I get on 10 sales calls every single day, I'll make $5,000 a day. This is wild. I could do like $1.8 million this year. Let's do it. So the relationship that successful people have with failure is just different. It's just it's kind of like a romantic relationship. It's like, it's not a toxic marriage. It's like this like this love. It's like, oh my God. Or when they're dating, their perspective is like, shit, like if I go through 400 bad dates to find like the right perfect person, it's 400 hours. So they just see it as an input versus output relationship to manage. And that's how I've seen it. So at the beginning of my career, I sent 50,000, not 50. I sent 50,000 emails manually, 500 a day for 100 days straight to
500
university.
A day?
500 a day. So I'd literally work and I just sit there manually because I didn't know how automations work, and I still don't, honestly. So I just sent them emails, and because my thought was, hey, like if even 1% of these professors love my videos. They were shit back then, so the strategy wasn't that sound. But the work ethic is 500 professors sharing with their students every semester. They get a bunch of different students. I'll blow up on distribution. So that sounds smart on action, but I got like 2 yeses. Right? Because everyone hated me. They're like, you're a kid and you suck and you're really bad. So what happened is when I changed that vehicle to podcast hosts early in the day, because I don't pitch that much anymore, but earlier, like maybe 2-3 years ago, I said, wait a second, let me think about this. This is how insane I am, guys. I thought about it and I was like, if I could guest on 10,000 podcasts, that's 16 a day, maybe 30-minute shows, 32 a day, and nobody was listening to the show, I would have 10,000 friends, and they would all share my YouTube channel with 5 of their buddies, and I would blow up. That was literally how crazy I was. It just didn't take 10,000. It took like 500.
I was like, that is a hell of a good approach. And yeah, of course, it didn't take 10,000.
Yeah, it didn't take 10,000. I mean, that was crazy.
The mindset. It's all mindset, right? That's my favorite answer we've ever gotten to the failure question, is that your relationship with it just shifts based on whether or not you choose to be a successful person. Like, it's a mindset game. And the mindset of, if nobody listens, but the host considers me a friend and shares with a couple of their friends, that's all I need. Fucking A, man. That's
brilliant.
Game changer.
And let's build on something I've never said on a podcast, which is the other side of the equation. Right? So we talked about the podcast host. I love nerding out around this. I love how you guys like nitty grit stuff. Is we talked about the host side. Hey, what's the difference between the top 50 versus top 5? But let's look at the other equation. Why did Heather just say, hey, that was my best answer to the question I've ever, and I've interviewed whatever number of guests you've had on the show? It's because I'm doing the legwork to listen to what everyone else is saying too. So I'm sitting there. I've listened to 1,000 hours of podcasting. I used to listen to 10 hours of podcasts a week since I was like 20. I'm doing this a lot less now because I've got a lot of work. So now it's like maybe 2 hours a week. But like when I would study all these people, I would listen to 100 different answers to the question on how do you manage failure. And I was like, this is like somebody would go, oh, failure is just a step in the right direction. I was like, this is a stupid answer. And then I'd literally go to the next one. I struggle with failure, but you just got to believe in yourself. I was like, that's really dumb. That's not going to work for somebody's. And I would just literally, since we're being candid here, and I would just go through all of them. I was like, I'm 100% sure I can come up with a better answer. How do I break this down for people? And I did that with everything. So if somebody asks me like, what do successful people, why is surrounding yourself with successful people important? So a lot of people on just so you guys know how much homework I do, most people just go, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and they don't add any other context. And I'm sitting there going, but you have to explain to somebody who's getting started, why is that important? So I list out reasons. Blind spots, if you're around successful people, they'll detect blind spots. What is the other second? The second one is, I'm getting so excited about this, is expectation setting. If you tell a successful person your goals, they're going to speak to you with the assumption that's going to happen. Whereas if you speak to somebody unsuccessful, they're going to assume it's not going to happen. But anyways, the point is, it's because I do that legwork too, that whenever somebody asks me a question, my goal is never to answer it. My goal is to always make sure I have the best answer in the industry. And when you have that standard of excellence, you can't fail. It's impossible.
Alan, I think that Brendon just told us that we ask a question that everybody on every podcast ever asks.
I know. I heard that too.
you two actually did a really good. No, but that's normal. You should ask those questions. And by the way, a lot of your questions are actually really good today, I must say.
Oh, thanks.
They're very strong. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. That is so cool. I mean, and I love how excited I'm getting. And we loved how excited you were getting. And I know that the audience is like, this is so exciting. And I just want to circle back. You have said you don't sell. You have said your target audience, your clients are 100% South Asian CEOs and execs who just need to get the grasp of how to share their stuff better, right? And yet, your goal, your passion is helping people everywhere. I said that in the open, right? Is to help people everywhere have free access to communications tools. And so what I want you to do is tell folks how they can find you, but tell them why. Why are they not tuning out when you've said, hey, listener, you're probably not my client. I'm not trying to sell to you.
For sure, Heather. So there's a couple of things. The first piece that I'll say around finding a niche in business, and I think a lot of people give bad advice on this. They always go, you got to niche down, you got to niche down, you got to niche down, what matters. I actually disagree with the piece of advice. If you're doing less than $100,000 in your business, I'll tell you why. From experience, you don't know who's going to buy from you and why. Because you don't really understand the product. You just built it. You're getting started. So for me, I thought students were going to be my clients, and I was wrong. Because they're broke. Then I thought CEOs of startup companies are going to be my clients, and some of them did. But
they're
it's
also
like
broke.
I know, right?
Yeah, they're also broke
For a long time.
Super fun to work with, though. I must say,
It's
they're
true.
super fun to work with. They're like, I've probably coached like maybe 10 out of the 130 I've coached so far, like on a paid basis. But those 10 were so much fun, and they gave me some word of mouth. But it's not the one that's gonna allow me to do this full time. So what I would do is I would test all these niches. And then when somebody bought, which is kind of an opposite approach, I would sit down with them, which nobody does in business, which I think is ridiculous, is I would sit them down, be best friends with them, because I'm trying my best to deliver great service, and literally ask them, how do I sell more people like you? I just sit down, like, why did you buy this thing? Like, why did you spend $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 on this coaching thing? And I would just listen to them while I'm having dinner with them. And I'd just listen. And they would go, oh, because of X, Y, Z reason. I go, oh, that makes sense. And I would just write down all those answers. So the next time I met a prospect who was in that niche, then I was able to niche down later. So that's the first piece. And the second piece is then when you niche down, but not at the beginning, only after you've tried a bunch of different customer segments, then what you do is the benefit that you have is it's really difficult for people to compete with you, especially in the niche I'm in, because I'm probably one of the, I can count on a finger. I know one other person who's a really strong communication coach for this community and that has an American accent. Very difficult to find.
So step 1, repeat people's names while you're talking to them. Step 2, look them in the eye. Step 3, say
Coach
Z
Indian
instead
people.
of Z. Got it. All right.
No, but really,
XYZ.
so
Right.
I love that with the niche down idea. And I think that's completely on point, right? I mean, I'm a coach also. Until you have the right feedback to tell you who you're supposed to niche down to, you've got to explore and play it. But again, for the folks who are not your target client, when I say, make sure you follow Brendon because your content is fire and it's really great, why? Why should they be paying attention to you?
For sure, Heather. I think for me, what was largely missing in the space that I think brought to communication, because my content's for everybody, right? It's not just for clients. Clients are the people I work with, and then I use that money to fund the production. Is one, I think communication is one of the most important skills that you need to master in your life. It doesn't matter if you want to be a business owner. It doesn't matter if you want to be a CEO or just a better mom or a better dad. You need to learn how to speak because it improves the quality of your life. That's why I call it the accelerator of dreams. It doesn't matter what the dream is. Communication allows you to accelerate that outcome. That's the first piece. The second piece is I think that what I'm bringing here is systematic and practical ways of actually communicating. So for me, it's like, I don't like fluff. And you saw this in this podcast, is I never settle for the average answer. And I do that in the context of communication. I'll give you one example of that. And hopefully that sells you on the idea to follow me. Is a lot of people say you got to listen more effectively. Okay, great, Sherlock. But what do? Like, what do I actually do? If I'm a terrible listener, how do I practice this? So I invented an exercise called the goals call. Take a friend, doesn't matter who it is, like a best friend of yours, sit them down for 45 minutes, spend the first 10 minutes asking them, hey, what are your top 3 goals for the year? Why are those goals important to you? You don't have to be a coach to this. You can be just anybody listening. And then for the rest of the call, you're not allowed to give advice. The only thing you're allowed to do is ask them clarifications around their goals and take notes and restate. If you do that with 10 different people, you'll be an exceptional listener. That's how you do it practically. And that's what I brought to the space that, frankly, weirdly, didn't exist before. So yeah, there you go.
I love that.
Huh.
That
Well,
is really cool.
We're going to put out tons of videos.
There's going to be a lot of videos.
There's going to be
We're
take
new
video
to
clips out
video.
of this and we'll put them out there, and we'll do the collab.
That's
We'll
a
do
new
the social
thing.
collabs.
That's a new
social
thing
collabs.
for us now to be doing video reels. So I'm super excited to share them. So, Brendon, how can people find you to get all of this awesome content that you're doing for free? Because that's your passion. That's the passion part of it for you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you two, I love to be on the show. Thanks for having me. I didn't even see it. I just realized it's been 72 minutes. I was like, oh my God, that really flew by. So thanks for having me. So 2 ways to keep in touch. The first one is YouTube. Just go ahead and type MasterTalk in one word. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to speak. And the second way to keep in touch is I do a free workshop on communication. That's over Zoom. It's live and it's free. So if you want to jump on that, go to rockstarcommunicator.com, and I hope to see you there.
And
That's
Alan
awesome.
will be there. You will see
I'm gonna be
Alan.
there. You better be there too, Heather.
I know. Well, I love your. I've been checking out your content. I've discovered you. I didn't discover you. I found you through Threads, and then went to your Instagram, and I was like, "You're cool. This would be fun." And I took a chance and said, "Hey, Brendon, you want to come on our podcast? I think you'd be great." And I was right. So there's that. And then I had to laugh because a fellow podcaster that I know, this might have slipped your mind, when I was looking through my emails, we had been introduced and asked to, and I'm so honored by this, asked to share a stage for a conference that didn't end up happening, but maybe one day it will, and I would love to share a stage with you. So
Thanks, Heather. I really appreciate it.
that was so fun.
We
You
should
are
all
on
share.
you are on LinkedIn and Instagram and Threads and TikTok as well. We'll put all those links in the show notes.
And now you've inspired me to go back and make sure my LinkedIn profile is A, updated, but B, I want to figure out what content to post there. Because maybe we could post some some Was It Chance?
I think that we could.
Content there on our LinkedIn profiles, Heather.
If
They
anybody
do pretty well.
out there knows of a LinkedIn expert that could tell us exactly what I don't want to do what you do, Brendon, or what you've done. I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours following the people that I like and trying to figure out what they do. The projector in me is like, let's shortcut this shit. And like, I want somebody to go, here's who your audience, well, we know who our audience is, right? But here's what, do these 5 things. And then I'll do the things, but I don't.
Get ChatGPT or Bard to write up the posts. We just need to cut out make the video clips.
Yeah, we can do it.
There you go.
Anyway,
Automate.
Are you disgusted by
Automate.
me, Brendon, for saying that? Like,
No.
I don't want to do the deep dive. That's not, no.
Well, no, of course not. Because that's how you speed up time, right? You hire people that,
So if you know anybody.
who have done that work, who have done that deep dive.
Exactly. I love that phrase. That's the perfect way to end. That's how you speed up time. I'm a big fan of delegating. So if anybody
All
out
right.
there knows a good LinkedIn guide or mentor, hit us up. Brendon, thank you so much.
That was fun. He and I are cut from the same cloth.
Oh my God.
Like just seeing the opportunity and diving in head first without checking how deep it is to fill that gap. That is just the epitome of what this podcast is about.
Yeah. You guys really are 2 peas in a pod, like for sure. The synchronicities were kind of flabbergasting, different industries, obviously, but that approach. And he's really young, and I don't mean that in any way bad, but to have achieved this much and to have that level of confidence, and he talks about that a lot. Like, people are, how have you done this when you're so young? But then he told us like hours and hours and hours and hours worth of dedication. But what we didn't dig into with him, but you can clearly see, is until he didn't need to anymore, until he had enough of mastery that he could move on to something else or delegate and speed up time. Right?
I like that
So
that last comment at the end. Yeah, to speed up time, you hire other people to help you. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good way of putting it, is speeding up time.
I loved the answer to failure. It's a mindset shift. It's a mindset game. Like, it's essentially whatever you believe to be true is true. And if you're successful, a sale is a win. And if you're unsuccessful, all the loses are losses.
I mean, it's hard to get through a lot of those back to back if you're taking them personally, rejections and
Absolutely.
not meeting your goals. But again, exactly like you just said, and like he was saying, is ultimately it's how you perceive it. And if you can, when something doesn't work, it's giving you the opportunity to do other things, which in theory are going to be better because you've just learned from the mistake that caused you to air quote fail in the first place.
Yep. I love it.
So I get it.
And then the other thing he said that I just loved was, we're all lucky. You just need to figure out in what way we're lucky. Mm-hmm. I hope y'all had as much fun as we did. Clearly, we were having a good time. We were like, oh, we have to stop now. So we thank you for listening. We're glad you're here. We're glad to know that that we're fun podcast hosts, that the guests enjoy the show. We certainly enjoy doing it. Alan, you can tell folks how they can find us, all of our past interviews, which are all also awesome.
Yes. Well, all of our best interviews you can find everywhere you are listening now. Also at wasitchance.com. We post on Was It Chance on Instagram. That's our username. On the IG. And you can write us, wasitchancepodcast@gmail.com. And now, officially, we're on Threads on Was It Chance.
We are.
Because
We are
obviously
on
we
Threads.
mentioned that in this episode, that now we're on Threads.
We are. We're on Threads. Come hang out. And
Thread with
listen,
us.
we would love to hear how you're out taking intentional risk and manifesting your dreams. And if you know of somebody who you think would make a great guest on the show, let us know, because we can see if we can get them on the show. It'd be a lot of fun. You've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals.
See you soon. Bye.